I will say, probably should have said this in my previous our previous workshops, but if at any time you have a question, you can just stop me and you can answer your question. Sometimes if we wait till the end, then you forget your question or it loses the context. So feel free to ask any questions if you have anything that's on your mind pertaining to your own children, or if you're just curious about something. I'll try my best to answer it. I may not know the answer though. Okay, so let's get started. Connected reading. This is the fourth part of our foundations of reading. And to quickly anchor ourselves and look at the big picture, the simple view of reading. So the goal has always been reading comprehension, reading and understanding what we're reading. And the way that we get to that point is this simple formula that was developed over 20 years ago, over 30 years ago now, and has yet to been disproved. It's word recognition, which is decoding, times language comprehension, which in our case, we'll just call it knowledge. So decoding, the ability to decode and read words, times your knowledge gets us reading comprehension. Okay. So just what does this formula actually mean? Because let's look at word recognition. Does the reader have the phonics knowledge to decode and sound out the word? So do you understand all the phonics skills and have that good letter sound correspondence, and it's automatic? An example of that is if you saw the word bath, or a child saw the word bath, would they know that that those letters and that specific letter combination is the B, which is the B, the A, which is the A, and then the TH, which is bath. And when you put it together and you blend it, you say bath. Unless you don't really, if you don't know that TH makes the sound, it might sound like bat. So, this is that decoding ability, the phonics ability. So that's the one part of this formula. The other part of this formula is if the reader can decode or recognize the word, does the reader have the knowledge to make sense of the word? That knowledge aspect. So even though you can sound out bath, does bath mean anything to you? Does the child know what a bath is? And in their mind, their collective mind, they're putting the words together, they're putting the sounds together, they're blending it, and then they're saying, "Oh, bath! I know what bath is. I know what bath is. Bath is I take a bath every day. I know what a bath is." So they read the word, and then there's that language comprehension, and the two things come together. So to read, you must not only be able to just decode and recognize words, but you must understand what that word means in context, vocabulary, background knowledge, syntax, and grammar. Okay, so putting those two things together gets us reading. So let's get to our topic for today. What do we know about beginner readers? Well, we know that if you're in age, I would say 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-ish, right? Around preschool through second grade, your children are still mastering letters and letter sounds and the phonics patterns, the phonics concepts. So maybe in kindergarten, they know a couple of letters and a couple of letter sounds, and they can put together some basic words. And then by second grade, they know all the letters and letter sounds, but maybe they don't know that if they see IGH, that combination IGH, that it actually makes the sound I. If they don't know that, then they might have to guess and figure it out. So, as they're getting older, they're still learning all these different letter sound patterns in phonics. And some students, even as they get older, are still struggling because they might have some phonological deficits. Things don't come automatically, but they're still learning those and mastering those phonic skills. So we know that they're still learning letters and letter sounds. Their vocabulary is very limited still because they just haven't been exposed to that much vocabulary. So even though they might be able to sound out words and blend and read words, they might not understand what they're reading. There are a lot of words that are unfamiliar to them. So they might not actually be able to read all the words depending on their age. So, you know, if you put a multisyllabic word in front of a kindergartner, it's going to be a struggle. So a lot of these words are unfamiliar. And the issue with our beginning readers is that without sufficient phonics knowledge, when they see a word that is unknown, they might have to guess at it because they might not have the prerequisite skills. So guessing is not a good thing, and I'll try to explain that later. Does anyone have any questions? I'll pause here for a second. Anyone have any questions right now? Okay. So I guess to explain this in mathematical terms, that's like saying, you know, kids in kindergarten, first, second grade, you know, they're learning addition and subtraction, but we wouldn't put in front of them multiplication and division problems because they wouldn't know how to do it. They've never been taught it. And if you gave them a multiplication problem without them having been taught it, they would probably just guess. They would probably just kind of look at the numbers and they might try to add them. They might try to subtract them. They might try to just put any random number. In many ways, that's similar to reading. Unless they have learned certain all the phonics skills and you throw in this really complicated word that they've never seen, that they don't know a specific phonics skill, they'll probably just guess at it. They'll probably say what they can say and then just guess the rest of it. So that's kind of like my analogy to math. All right, so what you're looking at right now is the letters and letter sounds. And this is from my last workshop. I suggested this could be an order to teaching letters and letter sounds. It doesn't have to be in alphabetical order, technically, if you're trying to teach kids how to read. And if you look at this, let's say the letters and letter sounds that a child knows is in blue. So the child knows all the blue letters and their corresponding sounds, doesn't know the red letters, okay? So if a child is reading, they can read words with these letters. They can read mat because they know the M-A-T. They know mat, mat. They can read that because if they know that letter, they know that letter sound, they put it together, they blend it, they can read it. They know dot, D-O-T, dot. They know cat, C-A-T, cat. They know, let's see, they know dig, D-I-G, dig. All right. They know hit, H-I-T. They can make all sorts of combinations of these words because they know these letters and they know these letter sounds. But as soon as you throw in, let's say, an E, and they see that E, and let's say it's G-E-T, they see that word. They know the sound, the G sound, but the E, if they don't know it, they might just kind of guess. All right. They might be able to figure out because they know the G sound and the T sound, but they're not sure about the E sound. So, you know, this is where kind of an appropriate level of reading and what they're reading is important, because you don't want to throw all these other sounds, these letter and letter sounds, to a really beginning reader if all they know is this. Now, if they know all the letter and letter sounds, it's pretty much fair game. But this is where the other phonics skills comes into play, like your your vowel teams, your weird spellings that you don't normally see, like we mentioned before in bath. For some reason, the T is T and the H is H, but when you put TH together, it's just F. So these are other things that they learn as they get older and older, okay? So let's imagine that this child knows these first 11 letters. Okay, so they know these first 11 letters. What connected reading is taking these letters that we know and having them practice what they know, and then adding on a couple more. And once they have this down fluently, then we can add a couple more letters, and then we can increase the number of words that they're reading. And this is what we call connected reading, connecting the phonics that they know and the reading that they're doing. And this is particularly important for emergent and beginning readers because they should read books that they can decode, not books that they have to, they don't know. Like I said before in math, you wouldn't teach kids addition and subtraction and then for some random reason start throwing division and multiplication at them if you haven't at least taught them. Now, some kids will figure it out. Yes, they are. We have kids who are gifted and can pick up things and learn it on their own. But most kids, a majority of students, need to learn the letters and sounds, need to practice reading with those letter and sound combinations. And what the books that we use to reinforce these skills are what we call decodable books. So for example, if you look at this, this image right here, it's a very, very simple, one of the first books that students read. If you look at it, it says Sam sat. And then the second one says cat sat on Sam. So looking at that, what letters does the child need to know? Well, they need to know the S sound for S. They need to know the A, the M, the T, the C, and the O. Literally, that's it. You don't need much more knowledge. So you don't have to know every single word, every single letter and its sound. Kids can actually start reading with just a few letters and their corresponding sounds. So we call these books decodable books. The one thing you do have to know is that that books don't have to be 100% decodable. Like they don't have to know every single letter and letter sound. You don't have to wait on that. So if there's one letter that they don't know, it's okay, it's fine. If there's a couple of different patterns that they don't know, that's okay as well. But for the most part, you want to give kids books that they can practice what they know, okay? So reinforcing the phonics with the reading, connected reading. I guess before I continue, does anyone have any questions thus far? I'll kind of pause here for a second. Any questions? Okay, I will continue. So looking at the types of books that we have, there that are out there for beginner books. There are decodable books, and like I mentioned, decodable books are beginner reader books used to practice and improve the phonics skills that they know. So beginner phonics skills, beginner decodable books have beginner phonics skills, and they progressively get a little harder and they slowly add more phonics skills. So they're practicing their decoding and their blending to improve their fluency. These books focus on specific letter sound patterns. So a lot of times in these decodable books, it'll say in the back, oh, practicing the TH sound, practicing the O, ah sound, practicing the U sound, practicing these consonants, that consonants. And it doesn't follow a predictable pattern. And I'll show you what that means later. So decodable books, there's no predictable pattern, and it focuses on the phonics skills, reinforcing those phonics skills that they're learning. The other type of book are leveled predictable books. So these predictable books follow a pattern to improve fluency. It doesn't particularly have a phonics focus. You'll see words and letter combinations in there that are kind of all over the place. And oftentimes they'll use pictures to help children read words. Okay. So as you can see here, often use pictures as a cue to help children read words. So we'll look at a couple of examples of both of these. So this is a leveled predictable book. It says right here, as we start from left to right, the cat is big. This cat is big, sorry. This cat is small. This cat is short. This cat is... Okay, so there is a very, very predictable pattern here. This cat is blank, all right? And it's so predictable that it's this cat is big, this cat is small. This cat is short, this cat is... And it doesn't even give you the word because the child is supposed to figure it out, right? This cat is tall. And like I said before here, it uses pictures. So if you don't know, if you can't figure out this cat is short, this cat is what? Well, the way that this book is laid out is that they give you a clue. And the clue is, oh, look at this short cat and look at this tall cat. So you don't necessarily have to read it. You can just figure it out using the pictures that this cat is tall. Now, let's look at this second one. This cat is dirty. And then I covered this up. All right, this cat is dirty, blank. This cat is nice, blank. Now, here's my little thing. I bet you can figure out, and even a 5 or 6-year-old can probably figure out what is behind here because of this predictable pattern. So we know that it is, this cat is something, right? This cat is dirty. This cat is, what do you think it is? So if we're doing opposites, the answer is this cat is clean. And then I'll escape out of here and I'll show you the answers. This cat is nice. This cat is... All right, you can take your best guess, but here's the answers. Clean. Oh, they actually left this open. So clean, and there's also this rhyming thing too. So clean, mean. So here's the thing. A lot of kids, what they'll do is they don't even have to look at the words. They know what the words are supposed to be because of the predictable pattern. But is that reading? Is it reading if you don't even have to look at the words? And that is what I'm trying to get at with predictable books, is that these books, it sounds like kids are reading. It sounds like they're looking at these words, they're blending and they're decoding. But in reality, they've probably just memorized the pattern. In fact, some kids read books and they can say confidently that they can read books without looking at the words because they have memorized it. Like they can just say everything that's on the page without even looking at the page. And it sounds like they're fluent, but what has happened is that they figured out the pattern and they've memorized it. Okay. So what I'll continue and then I'll come back to this in a little bit later.
I wanted to add something, Sam, because I'm thinking about preschoolers and toddlers that
Yes.
They memorize books and they read them. That's actually encouraged because that creates the love of reading. And you're talking about later when they're school aged and they're actually trying to decode words.
If you're trying to teach a kid how to read, decode words, You don't want them to memorize it. If you're trying just to read to kids and expose them to books and read aloud, that's totally different. So, you know, you can read this book and you can just show them and they can guess along with you. That's fine. But don't expect, I wouldn't use this book as a way to help kids learn how to read, nor would I expect them to learn how to read this way. This is something that if you're just saying, oh, I want kids to understand opposites, because this book is about opposites, dirty, clean, nice, mean, that's fine. But if you're trying to teach kids how to look at letters and read what's in front of them, this is not reading. I guess I should clarify that. And I'm going to pick on this book for a little bit, even though this is my daughter's favorite book. Again, if they're 3 or 4 years old and you're just looking at colors and shapes and different types of animals and you want to expose kids to literature, that's fine. But if you're trying to teach kids how to read, or if your child is reading this and you notice something about this, then about how they're reading it, then that's probably not helpful. It's not going to reinforce or make them more fluent readers. So we can just look at this really quickly. What do you use? Okay, let me just share this. So I'm going to pick on this. I found this on YouTube. And so you have 3 kids here. They're of different ages. So if the goal is just to expose them to different books, that's fine. Hair curl, colors, that's great as well. But again, like I said, this is not reading.
See! We have a chart here, and this is our brown bear. We have some Velcro here, and in our book, we have some cutouts. And you're all gonna get a different animal. When I call out your animal, you're gonna put it on the chart, okay? Okay. For those of you who are subscribed to me, I have a special gift for you guys. You're going to be able to get this download for free for your kids so that you can do this activity as well. And I'll link that below in the description box. So I'm just using Velcro here. And I'll link that below as well. Then because we're gonna start our story. Brown bear, what do you see? We're gonna start. Look, it's brown bear. Brown bear, what do you see? I see a bird looking at me. Who has red bird? Who has it? Iris has red bird. You want to go put a red bird on the chart over here? I haven't called yours yet. Hold on, okay? Red bird, yes. Red bird, what do you see? I see a yellow duck looking at me. Emily, you have a yellow duck.
Okay, so as you can see, this video, the purpose of the reading is not reading. It's exposing kids to literature, it's colors, it's identifying the color patterns, but this is not reading. So there's a big difference between helping kids to learn how to read and showing them different types of books, exposing them to different content and knowledge. So just be aware. Now, in this case, these kids, they probably know this book. So if later on they were trying to read this, it would be hard to tell if they were actually reading it or if they've memorized it, because the pictures are so clear. Like, you know exactly what, you know, brown bear, the bear is brown. What do you see? And then it shows what the next thing is. So books like these are a little bit deceiving as far as trying to figure out if your kid knows how to read. All right. Next one. Okay. The problem with predictable leveled books, and this is really for like kindergarten, first, second grade, not so much preschool. Your preschoolers, it's mostly just read alouds. They might be learning a couple of letters and letter sounds here or there. But once you're having your child actually look at the book and trying to read the words, there is a problem if they see words that they haven't learned in phonics, because they'll start guessing. And a lot of times because they don't know the phonics, they'll just look at the whole word and try to remember the whole word. And instead of trying to put the individual letter and letter sounds together, they won't try to decode it. They'll try to remember the whole word. And guessing is a very, very bad habit, because as they get older, they'll just continue to guess because it's the first way that they've learned. Like I mentioned before, sometimes they may not even look at the words or the letters. So they just look at the picture to guess. And a lot of times, instead of looking at the letters from beginning to end and sounding it out from beginning to end, children will identify the first sound. They might know the sound or the sound. And then it might be too complicated to read the rest of it. So they'll just guess the rest. So instead of horse, they might say house, because they see the H-O and they like, oh, a house, because they see a house on the page. And like I said before, sometimes children, they'll remember the whole pattern and they'll just stop looking at the words and memorize the story and just kind of say what they think is on the page. So the bottom line is that memorizing whole words and using pictures to guess words is not reading. True reading requires students to actually look at the letters and the letter combinations. And I'll get a lot of flack for this, as like, sometimes I'll say, don't use the pictures. The pictures can help you understand what the word means. Okay, so once you've read the word and you know how to read that word, then maybe you can use a picture to help you understand what that word means. But using the picture to decode a word is not efficient. And by third grade, if you're still depending on pictures to read words, it becomes a big problem, because there are no more pictures, or there's very, very few pictures, or the pictures are not related to what you're reading. So always use the letters and letter sounds first as your first method of word recognition. So here's an example of a decodable book. And in this case, I believe the triangle is the child and the circle is the adult. It could be vice versa. I'm not sure. I'm not sure which one is. One is an adult and one is the child, but neither are predictable patterns. A zap lit up the sky, and it lit up his mind. This is probably the child. Okay, and this is Ben Franklin. So as you can see here, there's nothing predictable about this. You can tell that they're using very specific phonic patterns here. But a zap was hot as the sun. One zap could set a house on fire. Okay, so there's no way that a child can figure out a pattern and figure it out. It forces the child to kind of go through all the sounds and sound it out and blend it out and practice the decoding. So like I said before, decodable books are called decodable because it forces a child to practice decoding. There's no pattern, so there's no way to memorize. And it's through the phonics instruction and specific phonics patterns and the connected reading in these decodable books that the child learns how to decode, not memorizing whole words, focusing on the individual sounds. So the bottom line for decodable books is that children steadily improve, slowly improve, and master the phonics code, and then become fluent. So a child who memorizes the whole book sounds fluent. because it sounds like, wow, they read that so fast, but they've just memorized it. Okay. Whereas a child who's reading decodable books will sound like they're struggling almost because they're practicing the skills that they've just learned. Okay. And if they're at that right decodable book, there'll always be a little bit of struggle because they're practicing those phonics patterns that they're just learning at that time. So, how do we help children decode new words? And I have an example there off to the right. Well, it's probably good that the parent just kind of quickly flips through the book to make sure that it's appropriate. If your child is just learning the first couple of letters, only knows a little bit, you don't want to throw in all these complicated words that they haven't learned the phonics skills from, because they'll just guess or just keep asking you, I don't know how to say this, I don't know how to say that. So you want to match what they know in their phonics skills with what they're reading. When they encounter a word that they're unfamiliar with, sometimes kids tend to freeze up. So let's say jab. If they never read jab, it's the first time they've ever seen that, but they know the sounds. Some kids will want to be lazy and be like, oh, Daddy, what does that say? Just tell me. Well, if you know that they know the J, the A, and the B sound, you can help them sound it out. So what you might do is just cover up the A and B and say, what's this sound? Ch, and then the A, ah, ja, and then have them hold that A, and then uncover the B, and then the last sound is B, and then have them blend it, jab, jab. And at the end, usually you try to tell them, okay, read it like you'd normally say it, jab. So always try to use the sounds and try not to use the pictures or guessing. So quick quiz. Let's take a look at this. I'll give you guys, 20 seconds to read this, and in your brains, tell me, do you think this is a predictable book or a decodable book? Okay, so let's see if you got this right. This is most definitely a predictable book. Orson has a something. Taco has a something. So if you look at the rest of these pages in this book, they look exactly the same. Orson has a something. Taco has a something. And it gets to the point where you don't really have to look at Taco has a, because you know exactly what it's going to say. You don't even have to look at little bone, big bowl. You can just look at the picture and figure it out, or take your best guess. So it encourages kind of guessing. Take a look at this one. So in this case, we have a decodable book. It does assume that the child has a higher level of phonics skill. So they're familiar with the ER, the R controlled. They're familiar with the CK, which makes the one sound. They're familiar that let's see, what else? There are some words in here like the WH just makes the W sound, right? There's no, you don't have to say hen, okay? So, that's something that you kind of have to go through and be like, oh, I don't know if my child knows this, or if they do and it's appropriate, then they can practice this. So to summarize, predictable pattern books do not reinforce good reading habits and may actually be detrimental to the development of your child's reading skills. I will caveat that with the fact that if you are just doing a read aloud with your child, you are reading to them. You can pretty much read whatever you want to your child as long as they have that kind of vocabulary, that background knowledge, and it's age appropriate. But if your child is doing the reading, it can be actually detrimental because they can pick up bad reading habits. What kind of bad reading habits? Well, memorizing whole words does not help improve decoding skills. If reading were just memorized words, if learning new words were just memorizing, we would literally have to memorize tens of thousands of words. But we don't memorize whole words. We decode them. We read it over a couple of times, and then it's in our basically what we call our sight word vocabulary. We don't have to memorize the word. We figure it out through decoding, and then it becomes automatic. Reading without looking at the letters and words is not reading. It's a form of reciting. Okay. Decodable books. They reinforce a child's existing phonics knowledge and helps children master decoding skills, which will bring them eventually to fluency. If they have a strong phonological and phonic background, there won't be a word that they can't read. They will have all the different attack skills and the phonics concepts to read almost any word. They may not understand what every word is, but they'll at least be able to read it. So ensure that you're finding an appropriate decodable book. Most books, decodable books, they come in series. So you can start, they have like really, really beginner books that usually are for kindergartners, and they go all the way up to second graders. And if you're not sure, they usually explain that like, oh, this is these are the phonics skills that they typically learn in kindergarten, first and second grade. The other thing is that the books don't have to be 100% decodable. And by that, I mean, your child doesn't have to know every single phonics letter sound combination pattern in that book. There are going to be some words that they don't know, and that's okay. And lastly, if your child is stuck on a word, always try to have them and help them sound out the words first from left to right. Don't encourage them to guess. Don't encourage them to say the first sound of the letter and then just guess the rest. Don't encourage them to look at the picture and then guess what the word is, because these are the techniques that bad readers use, not good readers. And in this, I included kind of a decodable text list. So there's all these different decodables. There's a lot more actually, but here are some that you can purchase. At the library, you can actually check out some of these books as well. And if you ask for decodable phonics books, they'll have those available. That's what I used with my girls at first. There was, I didn't go around buying all these books. And yeah, and here's the other thing is that your children, when they're first starting to read, you might say, wow, this book is really silly. It doesn't, what's the point of this book? And the point really is sometimes these books aren't going to be deep or profound. And that's because they have such a limited knowledge of phonics. So it's okay. You're reading this and they're reading this because they're trying to understand the code and gain that confidence. Trust me, if they start reading and they're like, wow, I can read cat and mat and cat sat on mat, they will enjoy that. So the success of reading will breed more confidence and eventually allow them to just expand their phonics knowledge and their fluency. So that concludes my presentation on connected reading and the difference between decodable and predictable pattern books. It is